Okay, so let's get into it. So a lot of this course is going to be talking about empowerment, okay? And that is helping you take full responsibility for like everything that happens in your life. Because like when we feel like life is like happening to us, like we feel like we eventually will start to suffer, okay? Because we feel like we're at the effect of things, okay? And we feel like everything's happening to us. Now, when we are at cause, and we're taking full responsibility and we like believe that like everything in our reality and everything in our universe that we're creating, we then have the ability to influence like everything that's around us. Okay. Now that doesn't mean you're going to change the people around you necessarily. Okay. I like to use this metaphor as like if you want to set up a business and you have a really good story about how you can't set up a business because the government charges you too much taxes. Now, what's the chances, okay, of the government lowering taxes for you to start your business? Like zilch, okay? So it's like super, super important that we like remember that if we're going to take responsibility for the things that we can control. And what can we control? Ourselves, yeah? So what you're going to do is you're going to then say, you know what, I can't control that, or I can't control those people, the government or corporations or whatever. What I can do is I can decide how I am going to think, feel, and behave. Okay. Now, when I very first like kind of learned this, like stuff was often very much like I realized like it's out of your awareness, things like your emotions and your beliefs and often conflicts that we have running. And we can kind of see sometimes that we're looping and we're going around in circles in life. However, like there's usually like we notice that we keep doing the same things that we've always done. And that often happens because we don't often go back to the root cause of the problem, mostly because we just don't even know how. Because like when we're really, really young, like what are we often told about our emotions? Not have them, okay? And they say things like men don't cry, ladies don't cry, like it's not appropriate to feel that here, it's kind of inconvenient. We say to our kids like, be quiet and yeah. Yep. All of that. So all those things get us to really start to disconnect from our unconscious mind. Okay. And what we really, really want to be able to do is to be able to recognize how we feel, because if we notice how we feel, we can even trace back to what we're actually thinking. Okay. Because even our thoughts will drive those emotions that will also drive like everything that's going on, like that we do or don't do in our life. Okay. And when people say, well, how's this different from like counseling? Because it's like you're working with your unconscious mind and you're working with the root cause of the problem. And we're not going to just talk about it. We're going to find it and then we're going to learn and like let go of it. Okay. And when we let go of that, it's like hitting the delete key. And once that delete key is hit, it's like it's not just sitting in the trash can, like it gets taken out to the tip and it's gone. Like you can't even recover it. Because when something like disappears out of someone's awareness, like it's gone, okay? Now, when a client says to you something like, oh, I don't want to talk about my mother, I've already talked about that. Just think about it, like, why have they chosen to say that? Out of all the things they could possibly say, why have they chosen that? You know? And that probably means there's things there they don't want to feel, and that's the exact area you need to go, okay? Because if it was healed, it wouldn't be there. They wouldn't feel the need to say it at all, okay? And another one is the client says, I don't know what my problem is. Okay, think about it like this, right? If you didn't know what your problem was, you wouldn't have a problem. Think about that, yeah? Because if you didn't have the problem, you wouldn't know how to do it. But if you're doing it, like, okay, there's something probably unconscious that as a coach, you can help that person and uncover it. Yeah. When a client's usually saying, I don't know, what they're really saying is that's painful and I don't want to go there. Okay? But it's there. And like knowing like meta model is the skill you're going to probably use the most to start to like pull that apart and find out what they've deleted, distorted, and generalized from their past. And pulling that language apart will help you find that root cause of the problem and help them let that go. So we're going to talk a lot about empowerment, okay, and how to help people be at cause. Now, most of your clients when they come to you are going to be at the effect at least some of the time. Okay, that's why they kind of have a problem, they're probably in conflict. And your job is to help them let go of that and help them become at cause, okay? A good client's a client that's like kind of at cause for some things in their life, maybe their career, maybe their relationship, but maybe they're not at cause for their health, okay? They say like, oh, this problem is because of X and this and that, and they have all these reasons in this area of life, yeah? Because we usually have like a gray area of life, and that gray area of life is like, this NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy skills, they work in this area of life, but this area of life over here, that's real. That's my finances or my health or that's my relationship. Like that, we usually have an area where we say like, it works for all these things, but it doesn't work for this thing here. Okay. But it's that thing is probably the area where we need to probably do more digging and actually get to the root cause of the problem. These skills work all the time without exception. And the more I start to teach you how the mind works, like whatever you think creates your feelings, whatever your feelings then create everything that goes on in your body with the actions you take, whatever actions you don't take, everything. It has to, okay? Because that's just how you manifest everything into your reality. But by level 2, like you'll actually learn the science behind that as well, okay? But right now, it's just being aware that like the more we take responsibility for our life, the more we can influence and change our life. However, when we're at the effective things, we're at the effective things. It's like, what's the chances of the government lowering taxes for you to start your business? Zilch, okay? And if you're like waiting for them to do that, like you'll be waiting a very, very long time. And perception is projection. So we're going to delve a lot deeper into this. And this is the course where we can start to really resolve projections. Like we touch on it in the 3-day hypnosis course. And if you are delivering suggestions, you can kind of like start to make a difference. But the things that will really make the difference is your parts integration and your timeline therapy, being able to resolve those projections at an unconscious level. Now we're going to talk about the mind-body connection. So we're going to talk about neurotransmitters bathe every single cell in the body. And I'll cover some research that's been done over the last probably 50, 70 years of what's actually led to understanding that really like your thoughts are influencing your body. Yeah? And even what you also eat will affect the rest of your body as well. And responsibility for change is always up to the client. Now, you guys are going to have all the skills to be able to help someone if they want help, okay? Like teenagers may be a hard one because they don't usually listen to mum or dad, okay? It's kind of that socialization period. They are going to just naturally want to reject you. However, you can be more influential. You can obviously build a better relationship, but everyone does have free will at the end of the day. Okay. What you'll probably find you'll need your timeline therapy for is to let go of your own trauma and phobias from having children. Yeah. So yeah, then you actually will become more flexible and patient with your children from letting go of all those phobias that you now have from them. Okay. And that allows you then obviously to communicate more effectively. I remember I taught some advanced communication skills in my level 2 course, and she had all these amazing things. And she said, I had my daughter come home. She was like, I think 17 or 18, just brought some random guy home. And she like obviously was furious and kicked not just the boyfriend out, but kicked her out of the house for the night. And it's like, don't come back with any boys. And just she said, once she kicked them out, she came in the next day and said, what happened? She said, oh, I just like completely lost it. I kicked my daughter out of the house last night. I said, well, what did you do? She says, well, I even was thinking afterwards, I should have used all these advanced communication skills that you taught me yesterday, but all that knowledge just went completely out the window. Right? And I said, well, it's a good thing we've got parts today. And then we actually like unpacked it. She felt like she couldn't speak for herself. She couldn't stand up for herself. She couldn't say what she wanted to say, and be like, unpack this gigantic conflict. And then she resolved the conflict. And then that night had a meeting with the daughter and actually like resolved it and just set a very clear, firm boundary not to bring random men into the house, basically. And yeah, she was able to build that connection back with her relationship. And it's a good example of like, you got to learn a lot of amazing tools, yeah? But usually when we go into fight, flight, or freeze, like all that knowledge just kind of goes out the window, okay? And that's where it really pays to resolve the projection itself. Because when you're kind of in conflict or you've got like negative emotions about something and you're not resolving these projections, like you can learn all the knowledge in the world and all that stuff can just go out the window. Yeah, when you're in a situation where you enter into your fight, flight, or freeze, or into that conflict, or you have some sort of limiting decision or negative emotional state that you're in. But we want to change those things. Okay, when we do, that's where all that knowledge that you got to learn, you actually utilize. Because we've heard like 95% of success is psychology. It's your mindset. And it's because like, if this stuff is like, if you have unresolved projections running at an unconscious level, like people will just self-sabotage. Like most people know what they need to do. Like they know what they probably need to do for their finances. They know what they should do for their health. Like we know what we should probably do to get into a relationship, but we just don't do it because of these conflicts that we have running. Right? Or we start to do it and then we sabotage it. Again, that's all conflicts. And that's all relating to your projections and how to resolve them. Okay. And it is always up to the person to make that change. And I actually love this. Like at first I'm like, oh my God, but that person needs my help. But I realize I'm like, but the person like doesn't want help. It's not a problem. Okay. Best thing I learned as a coach is not a problem. It's not a problem. Yeah. Best question you can ask a client is, how's that working for you? They're like, fantastic. I'm coping just fine, while they're like twitching and they'll be like, fine, sounds good. Totally fine. Yeah. But then you can say, really? And they're like, no, this is really my problem. Take them as a client. But most of the time, like we all have areas that we cope, okay? We all do things like we might smoke or have some sugar, or we have our coping or our vices. And if the person doesn't want to change it, they don't want to change it, okay? But you can give them the option, say, well, how's that working for you? Well, it's not working. I need some help. Oh, cool. I can help you with that. Okay? And that's where your skills come into it.